I do want to let everybody know that we are live streaming on YouTube and on the website. For the first hour tonight, we're going to have our bond hearing. In the second hour, we're going to do the budget hearing. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Rob Scott, White Mountain Regional School District's Director of our Career and Technical Education Center, who's going to be presenting the high school renovation and CTE redesign.
Can everyone hear me all right if I don't use the mic? Okay. So the bond hearing tonight is for the renovation project that will be on the ballot, I think it's March 10th, 2020. And it's a project that we've been working on for the past 3 years. In the crowd tonight, we have a couple gentlemen that has assisted the high school and the school district on the work that we're going to present. First of all, we have Lance Whitehead. He was the architect that worked on the conceptual planning. He's from La Valley, Bresinger. And then also we have Keith McVeigh from Bonnet, Page and Stone. They provided us with an in-depth budget estimation so that we can have accurate numbers to bring to our taxpayers. So at any point, if you have any questions for me about the presentation or about the concept design or about the budget, please don't hesitate to ask. So one of the things about this renovation is the last time the project came up for vote 5, 6, 7 years ago, one of the things that we heard loud and clear is we were increasing the size of the building substantially. And one of the things we heard was, what were you doing with the other spaces? So we really wanted to utilize that term renovation, because we are asking the state to help fund the career technical ed portion, which is up to 75%. So really want to utilize that term renovation instead of building new. So what you're going to see tonight is an overview of the spaces, as well as the overall budget, and then the potential tax impact. And then finally, we'll end with the draft warrant article information. So our current plan, number one, focuses on student safety and the security of our building. And if you think about the way you approached our building tonight, when people come to White Mountains Regional High School, most of the time we do not know you're there until you are at our front door. And in this day and age, we really need to see people approach. We need to be able to see the road coming in, the parking lots. And although we have camera equipment, sometimes life gets busy and you don't always pay attention to that, that part of it. So really focusing about putting the main entrance and focusing the renovation around moving it to the front corner of the building. So when you look at this image, currently the main entrance is right here. And we're proposing to move the main entrance over here. And it's going to focus around safety and security. And we're going to talk about how it impacts some of our CTE programming, which is also the safety and security of our students. Secondly, we wanted to develop a plan that was fiscally responsible and supported by the taxpayers. And by doing that, thinking about the minimum additions into it and focusing on renovating our current spaces. The other piece is capturing the recommendations of what we call program advisory committees. And I'm going to use the term PACs sometimes throughout the presentation. That is the Program Advisory Committee. And those committees are bound by federal law through the Perkins legislation, and they provide valuable input into each of our career and technical ed programs and help make decisions around curriculum, around equipment, and they're folks from industry. So they're in the industry right now, and they can help us project where that industry is going to be 5, 10, 15 years down the road, so that our programs are properly prepared students for when they leave high school. So they played a huge role in providing feedback through 3 drafts of this plan. The next one is a continual expansion of student commons and collaborative learning environments. If you've been through the halls of the high school lately, you see we now have teacher collaborative spaces. They no longer have home rooms. And we're asking our students to do the same thing. So throughout this design, we were able to capture nooks and crannies and utilize the space to the fullest to create these small collaborative areas so kids have alternative places to work with each other, to work with teachers, to practice presentations, or potentially just to have a quiet space to get some work done. Number 5, affect the most programs throughout the building. This is CTE heavy, but we also took a look at our special education population and how this renovation could impact them. We took a look at athletics, our counseling department. When you look at this image, currently the main office is here and counseling is here, so we are separated. And at times we are working day in, day out together, and it makes it real tough to come together in a collaborative atmosphere. So part of the plan brings the counseling office in with the main office, and then upgrading our current health center. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. And finally, develop a community-friendly and accessible design. And I think once you see some of the images and some of the floor plans that I walk you through, you will see how this building will be community-friendly and accessible. So that if a parent or community member or a former student wanted to come and meet with the staff or talk to Mr. Berry, the principal, very accessible for them to do that. I think it's important to highlight some of the work we've done over the past 5-6 years here. So 2 years ago, our gymnasium saw a substantial overhaul. It was not ADA compliant, so we actually had our bleachers removed. They were a safety concern, and we put in ADA compliant bleachers that now wheelchairs can access, so that when we're hosting games and events, people who are wheelchair bound can participate without having to be off to the side. We also had the floor refinish. We took advantage of that opportunity at that time. We did our teacher collaborative spaces. We combined some classrooms to fulfill the vision of what we call humanities. And that is taking English and social studies curriculum and teaching them at the same time. So when you're learning about the War of 1812, you're also reading the literature that was influenced by what was going around, at that time, or whatever situation in American history or world history. So you can see here, this is an image, it might be a little dark for you, and that's one of those collaborative spaces, or humanity spaces, where we can fit 35 kids at a time, with 2 highly qualified teachers, one in social studies, one in English, and bring that curriculum together to make it relevant for our students. You look around this space, this saw a substantial upgrade this past summer and at the end of last school year. So it all started with last year. We had our ropes inspected back here, and nobody would touch them because they're the original ropes from 1966. And nobody wanted the liability, and people were concerned about the ropes are starting to fray. And those ropes hold up big light bars here that weigh about 1,000 pounds a piece. So we had to upgrade these lights. They're on new pulley systems that have double brakes in them. And at the same time, our seats, the stalks were all broken out of them. The plywood was starting to become exposed. So that these were deemed a safety concern. And at that time, we did some work to the floor. So in here, we have all new theater lights, new seating with ADA skids up front, so we can actually quickly take a couple of these seats out and allow wheelchairs to integrate instead of segregate over in this area. We also have the new AV sound system. So the capability of running meetings like this, I think Jeremy Noyes, our IT guy, appreciates, the complexity that goes into these meetings and how the system actually simplifies it. And then some other areas that we worked on is the cafeteria. We have the slanting room out back. Some people hear it as 106. It's a seminar hall. If you were here a long time ago, Dan Chick taught in there. But a lot of upgrades to the AV sound system in there and really making it a seminar atmosphere, similar to what kids are going to see when they leave here and go into post-secondary. Our media center was upgraded with new furniture, new carpets, new ceilings. HVAC systems have been worked on. Sprinkler system. This was something that was part of the last renovation, but this entire building was sprinklered about 5 years ago. So that was a piece that we didn't have to capture in the renovation. That was in the previous ones. A lot of field work going along around the district and here at the high school. And finally, this was a fun project for me, but that little sign down at the bottom of the road. We feel like it greatly increased our communication with the staff or with the communities, and we really want to highlight it. So this is some of the work that we've been doing somewhat quietly. And we feel like it was important to showcase this because this renovation ties into what we've done in the past, and it kind of brings the whole building together. So our proposed concept areas. So the CTE spaces, and these are the programs that we have, they're all getting substantial renovations because we are going to utilize 75% funding from the state of New Hampshire Department of Education on these CTE spaces. So we have an ag science program, we have criminal justice, culinary and hospitality, cybersecurity networking, JRTC, and welding. And as I previously mentioned, we're going to be renovating some special education areas, the health center, the main entrance and offices, locker rooms and athletic storage, the main restrooms, and then some halls and common spaces. And over here, I just listed a couple areas that we're going to renovate that aren't in the presentation as in-depth, just so you can see what we're doing. So ag science, we are going to build a self-standing greenhouse. So the greenhouse you see on the side of the building, there's a lot of concerns, and the Department of Education has concerns about attaching a greenhouse to a school building because of the mold that it can generate, because of the fact that you now have to sprinkler it. And quite frankly, in our building, that side of the building fills up with bumblebees and wasps in about October, November, as they're trying to find a warm place to come in, and we're constantly up in the ceiling getting them out. So in industry, you typically wouldn't see a greenhouse attached to a building, so we will build a small standing one, utilizing some of our revolving account funds to make that happen. We're also going to upgrade some of the equipment in that space. In our criminal justice program and our computer networking program, those are side by side. So those are represented right here. For the most part, they'll get new floors, which is the tile on those floors are asbestos. The mastic that holds them down is asbestos. And then the joint compound in the walls is asbestos. So all of that will be abated. And then new flooring, new walls, upgraded electrical, upgraded HVAC, new ceilings, and new equipment. The only thing that's a little bit different is our computer networking program right now. We're going to utilize some small offices in the back side of it to, number one, create a secondary exit out of that space, because right now there's only one door in, one door out. But also it's an opportunity to put in a live working networking station so that it mimics what they see in industry. Right now, and in previous years, they've been able to access the district network, but because of new data protection laws and cybersecurity laws, we're no longer allowed to do that. So right now, they're working in a simulation online, but we really want to give them that real life industry feel. So part of their renovation is to build a small networking room that we can put racks in and teach them how to wire the racks and program them and so forth. And then in our JRTC, it's our only space in our building right now that you can't get a wheelchair in. And the renovation plan addresses that. So years ago, you used to be able to access it in the backside through a door, using the ramp down in the CTE space. But when they put the sprinkler system in, they put the pump room right in front of that door. So we lost our wheelchair accessibility. So the plan actually addresses that. It'll put a nice long ramp system in, as well as take a look at the layout of the space and redesign it to fit the needs of what the program advisory committees recommended in the design process. There's a look at the overall plan again. So the areas in color are the areas that will be affected by the renovation. We're going to talk in depth about some more of them. So the new main entrance, and I can't stress it enough, the whole plan hinged on this and on the safety and security of our students. So this is a blown up view of it. I'm going to go back here. So this is represented in this space right here. Okay. So the new main entrance, people will approach the building like they have, but we have sight lines for the parking lots, the admin parking lot here, the walkways. And our secretaries will be up there, and the arrows represent the sightlines that they're able to see both out of the building and in the building. So what will happen is people will be able to enter these two doors, but this will be a three-way airlock system. So once they're in here, they have to state their purpose of why they're at the high school. Over here is the new public entrance for Culinary Arts. Because currently, people have to walk all the way down to the hallway to the middle of the school to access our Culinary Arts program. And now we create a secure public entrance so that people can access that program without necessarily being integrated with our student population. There are other options to get buzzed through this door and come talk to the secretaries about why they are at the school. The neat thing is we still have one more door up top, but we have the ability to put an airlock system on that when people come into the building, if you notice that they're irritated, if you notice they're amped up, you don't necessarily have to let them through that door. You still could have the control to keep them within this area, either get them calm or ask them to leave and come back another time. So that, when we think about the safety of our students, our staff, we felt like that was important. The other piece to this, and I mentioned it before, we bring in our counselors in here. We create a huge PD collaborative space that can double as a big conference room for our special education meetings or other meetings. We bring in all our supports up in here, as well as the administration here and up in the corner. So kind of the main frame of the building is now all located in one central area. Any questions on the main entrance? As I mentioned, one of the initiatives we have here is that collaborative work, whether it's staff working together, students working together, or students and staff. So we're going to look at some images that kind of highlight areas of the building that we've utilized with Mr. Whitehead to help further, that philosophy of collaborative education. So some examples, this is kind of up by the main office, where we're able to put in some nooks where students can work. A small presentation area, so this would be an interactive board here that students can practice presentations. Teachers can be sitting here watching the students present and give feedback, or students can be giving feedback to each other in an area like there. Up there is another one, just taking advantage of the corners. And one thing you'll notice is there's large glass right there so that they can be monitored. So wherever these nooks and crannies are, there's glass so that people can see in and out so that they can be properly monitored and supervised by administration or teachers. The Culinary Arts and Dining Room. So this played another large role in our renovation. And the reason being is our Culinary Arts program right now hosts about 40 events a year. And a lot of people ask the question, well, aren't you interfering with businesses around the community? And the funny thing is all our businesses in the community send people to be representatives on our program advisory committee. So Joanne down at the Inn at Whitefield actually communicates with our chef. She actually hired our Culinary Arts program to cater their Christmas party because she didn't want to cook for her own party. So one of the things is the Culinary Arts space has been there since the 80s. And right now we can only fit 20 people in there. And we host Rotary on a monthly basis. And at any given time, you could have 30 of them show up. And our license is only for 20. And the other piece we talked about is it's right in the middle of our building, and that's not preferable when we think about safety and security. So the space that we're coming up with it can host up to 64 people, in a restaurant style, and you could fit probably up to 100 theater style. So if you had a presentation, there will be AV equipment in there, similar to here, smaller scale, so that groups that are having luncheon meetings can have access to that type of equipment. Our chef can use it in teaching. But the other piece to this is the kitchen. And I wish we had time to go on a tour. But if you go into our Culinary Arts kitchen right now, we are lucky. However, it is not teacher friendly because when you walk down one side of it, there are the prep stations that the students start prepping food at. And then they have to carry it all the way across the kitchen to the burners, and our burners are all in a row. And you cannot fit 16 kids at the stove at the same time with an instructor. So now kids are having to wait and not getting the access they need to really practice those culinary arts skills. So in this proposed plan, each of these workstations have burners on the ends. And they are tied to the chef's master one here, and there'll be a camera above him so they can see what he's doing. There'll be a screen so they can look at his hand motions, they can see how he's stirring, all the techniques involved. The other piece is one of our stations will be ADA compliant. So we'll have the ability to crank it down to someone in wheelchair height so that they can fully participate in the program. Another feature of the Culinary Arts design is we moved the dishwash station away from the dining room. Because currently, right now, it is right next to it, and they can't wash dishes when they're hosting events because it is so loud. And there's also concerns about, is it sanitary to have that dish station so close to the food eating area? So it moves it back and just really reutilizing space. What's important to note about this is a lot of our culinary arts equipment was purchased 4 years ago, and we will be able to take a lot of that equipment with us. There will be a need to buy some upgraded equipment, but we're working with folks to identify the pieces that we can use and bring to help keep that cost down in this space. Any questions on the culinary arts kitchen and dining room?
I'm sorry, you may have said it before, there's a separate entrance outside of the school for the culinary.
Yeah, so there is a door that leads out onto a pathway, but when we're hosting events, we still want them to use that main entrance so we know who's in there.
Separate from the rest of it.
Yeah, it's separate. So when we're hosting events here, these doors we can put on a locking system so people still can't enter the building via this way. I think that's what you were getting at.
Yes.
And this is just an image of a concept of what it potentially could look like. So you can see the dining space, the glass to take advantage of some of the views. We are the White Mountains Regional High School, so why not look at the White Mountains when you're attending events? Special Education and Health Center. So currently, this is our main entrance here. And if you've been in our health center, and it's the same health center from 1966, the standards have changed from 1966 to now. It was interesting, about 3 months ago, we had Mike Lee, he's the president of Leeds Medical Center, up here on a tour. And he was just shocked at the size of our health care center for the number of students that we have and staff here accessing it on a daily basis. So part of our plan was to create a larger facility that focused on giving students privacy and access to the services within the health center. So right now we have one small exam room that is currently being used by one student with high needs that needs a clean space. And then the other exam room, our cots are only about 3 feet apart. And to us, that's a huge kind of HIPAA violation because kids don't have the privacy they need. The other piece is our bathroom. You can't fit a wheelchair in there. So anytime the nurse has to help a student in a wheelchair, they actually have to go to the other corner of the building in the CTE wing and use the bathrooms down there. And that's not ideal because she doesn't have access to some of her equipment when she's there. So part of this plan calls for separate exam areas, 3 of them, with adequate spacing and specialized curtains that give that privacy, but also a restroom that's handicap accessible and has a shower, because there are times that she assists students with showering, and we do not have a shower in our healthcare center right now, so it has to take place in the locker rooms or down in our current special ed space. So the plan focuses on that. The office is added down here, and then the potential for a second healthcare provider, whether it's an athletic trainer, or there was a need that you had a high need medical case that you needed an LNA here to kind of supplement, you know, our nurse. There's a separate area for them to have a space to you know, do some of their work. And then in our special ed department, this utilizes the space that is currently being used by our administration and front office staff. So what this focuses on is our life skills population. And if we think about what is our goal for our life skills population, that's to create the most independent living student that we can potentially create. Give them the skills that they can live as independently as possible when they leave White Mountains Regional High School. So if you've been in our special ed program, they do have a kitchen down there, but it is the kitchen from 1986. It's not really handicap accessible. There's no places for wheelchairs to pull under all the cabinets. And the other piece is it's so small, you can only fit 2 students and 1 teacher in there at a time. So when you are trying to teach 6, 7, or 8 kids at a time, it is not an ideal layout. The other piece is the laundry facility sits smack dab in the middle of a classroom. It was, you know, it was something that was added later in the years. It functions, but it's not what they're going to see it, you know, when they leave here. And it's definitely a distraction for the learning that's going to take place when they're not utilizing that. So this plan calls for separate areas. So this could potentially be an area where they work on their math skills. The wall can be closed. You could have an area for, say, ELA skills. Here, you can see the kitchen with a big island, so more students can fit around it. But down here, this can be used, you know, as a classroom space, but it can also be used as a mock dining room so that they can learn how to set, you know, table places and stuff for if they ever have guests over. So really making it a multi-purpose space and allowing, you know, different things to happen within the special ed. Also some direct service provider rooms in that area, and then another common area that if you needed to break out into small groups, as well as a quiet room. The other piece is, you know, there is a need, they use it, a bathroom that's ADA accessible and has a shower, as well as a second staff room. So any questions on the health center or the special ed suite? All right, the multi-purpose space. So this is represented up in that area right there. One of the things that we heard last time in our renovation attempts is, as CTE was vacating spaces, what were you doing with the old space? Okay, so we felt like it was important to highlight the space that I'm about to show. This space will be tied to our JRTC program, our criminal justice program, as well as accessible through our athletic programs. So what this creates is a fitness area. So there is a weekly requirement for our students in JRTC to do physical training, as well as our criminal justice program. There are increments in which they have to do physical testing. So creating a space that they, multiple programs can access. But also in JRTC, they have to do qualifications with rifles, and we use air rifles. And currently, the only space big enough for them that's not a hallway is from that door to that door. And it's not an ideal situation to utilize your auditorium in that way. So this space actually represents 10 more meters than what we have here. So that there's an actual appropriate backdrop to their airsoft targets. So this equipment is mobile, it can be pulled out of the side, and now they have the qualification range that is necessary. They could also potentially do drill in there. We're not sold on what type of floors are going to be in there yet. It's just to take a look at the space. So it will be accessible to multiple programs as well as, our weight training program and our athletics after school. Any questions on this? And it does tie, this is the door that leads right into the JRTC space, and that's actually one of the classrooms from JRTC.
And this is what is currently the Culinary Arts?
That's currently Culinary Arts, yes. So when we look at this image, it's up there. And you can see how it ties in. This is all the JRTC space there. All right, locker rooms and changing spaces. So our locker rooms are original from the building's construction in 1966. And our staff has done a fantastic job keeping them in the condition that they currently are. But the layout is no longer functional, and there is a huge need to do an upgrade, as well as the program advisory committees for our welding program, for Culinary Arts, JRTC, and criminal justice have asked for locker rooms or changing spaces within those programs, because they're changing their clothes twice a day when they access those programs daily. In our first rendition of the plan, Lance did hear those program advisory committees out and put locker rooms in each of those spaces, but it either stole valuable instructional learning space or it created additions, and we knew we didn't want to do additions. So we asked Lance to take another look at it. And when we walked down one of the hallways, there was two doors that I really never knew what they went to. Opened them up, and they were kind of an old back way to the locker rooms. There used to be exterior bathrooms on the building before the CTE addition was put on in the mid-'80s. So what that does is allow us to create and rethink about how we use that space in the locker rooms to create 4 areas. So in the center, we create CTE changing spaces. So our kids in culinary, JRTC, welding, and criminal justice have a place to go to change their clothes. And to give you a reference point, let's see if this works. These spaces are here. Okay? Culinary Arts is here, so easy access. Welding is up there, easy access. JRTC is there, easy access. When criminal justice needs it, they have to come to that multi-purpose space anyways. So easy access. So it's centrally located. So instead of doing 8 sets of locker rooms throughout the building, really utilizing that space, and I give Lance a lot of credit for really thinking this through. The other piece this does for us is currently when some of our sports teams play, when Groveton comes to town, they bring their varsity boys and varsity girls. And what happens is Groveton gets our locker rooms, and our teams have to go into classrooms, which is, not very sanitary. That's not what those spaces were designed for. So creating a space like this in the evenings, the athletic programs can utilize the space for one boys team, the other boys team, a girls team, and the other girls team. So now you've got places that are properly taken care of for the type of hygiene that needs to be there. Any questions? All right, and our bathrooms. So these are the bathrooms that are located across from our cafeteria. And in the plan, they are highlighted right here. And if you've been in those bathrooms, again, I need to say how well our maintenance department does at keeping things functioning here. But this past summer, we had to replace the floor in there. And we ended up having to replace a large section of pipe because it just was all starting to break apart. And that's going to be our story kind of moving forward with those spaces. So really taking a look at redoing those bathrooms. And we've been in tons of schools where they've moved to single use, and you can put materials in here and cut your cleaning time down, even though these are all single use. I was in Dover High School, and they had quick connect hoses. And you just basically start at the ceiling, go down, and spray them down, clean them, and move on to the next one. Also, adding ADA compliant restrooms on the end. You could get a wheelchair in our current ones, but it is a tight fit, and you probably need somebody to help you navigate, because the corners are tight, and then getting into the what we call the ADA compliant stalls. By the letter of the law, are they compliant? Yes. Are they functional? No. So using the single use bathrooms, and that way we don't necessarily have to delineate what's a boys' room, what's a girls' room. If you've ever been outside of our bathrooms at lunch, there's a line at the girls, and the boys, there's not. So this creates a lot of flexibility in what we can do. The other thing, and this was an unintentional byproduct of it, but it brings this wall way down. And one of the areas where we have the highest congestion of students, that is, less structured, is our cafeteria. In the event of an emergency, we could have upwards of 200 to 250 kids in that cafeteria. And if there was an emergency and we had to evacuate them out of there, by bumping this wall down, we now just widen that hallway and we can quickly move students where we need to. So it's the most unstructured area of the building, and we've created a wider hallway to help facilitate moving kids through. So, that's another positive to thinking about these bathrooms. Any questions on these? I threw this in, we didn't look at the welding space in here, but this is the concept. And if you've been down to our welding lab currently, our welding booths go like this. So there's a bank here, and then they come out. We don't have any windows here, and the wall stops there. So we run welding, fabrication, and small engine repair kind of at the same time, because they all play nicely together, and it gives kids some solid skills when they leave here. But there's a lot of concern about if kids are in welding in the booths, while some are over fabricating or working on small engines, the supervision necessary, for the risk that happens in that lab, the plan calls to move the welding booths, and now the instructor has full view of everything that's happening, as well as adding windows into the classroom so he can see what's happening in that academic space of the program. The other piece is a small steel addition back here, and that roots itself in, last year, we were asked to build just a trailer frame for a tiny home. And that trailer extended from the door to the end of the wall. So to access that space, you actually have to climb over the trailer to get into the welding space. So bumping that wall out creates flexibility in the projects that we can bring in, while still having the necessary floor space for our students to do the smaller projects, small engines, small fabrication. There's some exterior views, and I hear this a lot. Ignore the color of the bricks. They're just there to highlight the space. That won't be the final color of the bricks, I can promise you that. But what this image represents, just to showcase, is the minimal expansion of the building. We did have to bump it out a little bit to create Culinary Arts space, the new main entrance, and the movement of like the health center expansion a little bit, and bring in the counselors to the front office area. And a small addition back there for the welding addition, as well as doubling the boiler capacity of this building to create what's called a double redundancy system. Because right now our system, and Bill, you can correct me if I'm wrong, it is like on a very cold day, it is maxed out for the entire building. So why not utilize some of the state money at 75%, create that double redundancy, and actually warm your building up faster, therefore reducing some of your energy costs in the long term. So this image shows the minimal additions that are happening. This is just an image from the parking lot on the approach, just to kind of show the Culinary Arts space, the main entrance. All right, now everybody's favorite part, probably the only thing so we look here, the budget impact. So I'm just going to walk through some of these numbers, but these are the main areas that the money's going to be spent in for this renovation. And at the end of the day, the total project cost is $12,944,540. And I mentioned that the state will fund up to 75% of the CTE space only. So what we have here is, this is what the total cost of each of these breakdowns are. Then we identified what are the costs associated with the CTE space. So for the CTE space, $10,379,674. That leaves you with roughly $2,564,866. That will be on the high school side. So CTE here, high school here. Now we got to take 75% of this for the state funding piece. What ends up happening is we are asking the state for $6,856,578, which leads us to this number here, which this is what we will be asking our local taxpayers to support. It's $6,087,962. Any questions on those three big numbers? The overall budget, what we are asking the state to commit through the CTE, and what we are asking our taxpayers to support. And then this is the potential, and these are based off of estimates from the bond bank, but these are the potential impacts using a 20-year bond. And in our building committee, and we presented some information to our school board, we looked at 20-year bonds and we looked at 30-year bonds. 30-year bonds only drop these numbers minimally here. But what it did is add on $1.5 million in total payments on the other end. So 20 seemed to be that number, that these numbers kind of leveled out, but you weren't paying a lot more on the end. So this is a 20-year bond. These represent the payments just for year one of the bond, the principal and interest, year one. And it wouldn't be until fiscal year 22. So you can see the breakdown by community, what the impacts on the $75,000 home, $100,000, $150,000, $200,000. Any questions on the tax impact?
So the tax rate will go down every year thereafter?
Yes. So your first year of the payment is always your highest, but as you pay more principal off, these will go down. We don't have those projections yet, but this is the highest it will be, and then it's going to go down. And this is the draft language that's still being finalized through the powers that be. Right, Sheila? So draft language of the warrant article that will be presented at the deliberative session and then on the ballot on March 10th. Would you like me to read it or? One of the things that I think, is worth mentioning is this does require 3/5 votes of 60%. This is not a simple majority passes this project. It would need to pass 60% for the vote. And it is all contingent upon the state supplying the 6.8 million and some change. So if they come up with a number short, this project, won't go. Any questions?
How long do you think the construction phase will be?
That is a great question for Keith McVeigh. Keith is from Bonapage Stone.
We're looking at 20 months.
And what happens if how we begin with cost overruns?
I didn't hear you.
How we begin with cost overruns?
So part of that budget does have in almost a 10% contingency fund. So the contingencies are built into the construction side as well as the design side. So just over $1 million of that 12.9 are contingencies. So if we don't need them, that money could be returned. So hopefully we don't, go above that.
And do we have a process for approval of any
Pre-approval for?
pre-approval of any cost overruns?
Yes. So there will be what we're doing with this one is we're going to use a construction management approach. So we will have a building committee and say, Bonapage Stone isn't our construction manager. If this passes, we will then go out, send an RFP out to try to find a construction manager to manage this project. So how it will work is they will elicit bids for each aspect of this project. and they prefer to use local contractors. Because otherwise they have to pay costs to get people up here. So they handle the bids, they hand the bids over to the local building committee, who then evaluates them, refers to the budget, and then determines who the bid will be awarded to, or make a recommendation on the bid. So there is a budget committee, or a building committee, that will evaluate all them and determine if there is an overage, how does it affect the contingencies? And at the end of the day, this project cannot exceed that. So if we're halfway through and we find a major thing, we have to make changes to the plan to stay within that budget. So, typically some of those things are new equipment. We'll just have to hold out and budget for those slowly over the years, or ask for donations from industry. Does that answer your question? Any other questions?
Can you give me the dates and places when you're going to present this to the communities?
I don't have them in front of me. So we have been to the select boards.
That's not the population.
Yeah. So we do have, I don't have the calendar in front of me, Arlene, and I'll get it to you so you can publish them. But we are going to be hosting like a rodeo event up here where people can come up and check it out. We have an event scheduled at the Summit Morrison where the public is invited there. We have an event scheduled at the Genesis Health Center in Lancaster, and people will be able to attend there. It's open to the public, and we are scheduling other public events.
Yeah, I'd like to put those in.
Yeah. Any other questions? Thank you.
I think we're ready to start the budget hearing presentation. I'm gonna ask, we have microphones here, but there's a few scattered folks in the back. If you could move a little bit closer, then we don't have to bother you with the microphones. And I think it'll be fine, you can hear long term. Also, if anybody has any questions or comments or statements they'd like to make, I'd ask that you come up to one of the microphones, state your name, the town that you're from, and we can have that in the minutes. For anyone that wasn't here for the beginning of the CTE presentation and the bond hearing, we are live streaming. So if you do have questions or comments, I'd ask that you speak clearly, so folks at home that are watching can hear. And thank you, Mr. Scott. We are here for the White Mountains Regional Fiscal Year 2021 School Budget Presentation. It was proposed and approved by the board at a previous meeting. My name is Jessica Loyacono. I'm chairman of the board, representing the town of Whitefield happily for the last 10 years. Before we move on to board introductions, I'd like to take the opportunity to acknowledge the extraordinary efforts of the finance department, our superintendent, Dr. Marianne Anastasia, all the administrators across the district, not only in central office, but in all the buildings. Completing this process and getting the board to this presentation is not an easy task. The time, energy, and expertise across all departments, as I speak for the entire board, is truly appreciated, and we're very grateful to have all of you. So thank you. I'd like to go down the line and have my co-members introduce themselves, then we'll move on to the presentation.
Jim Brady from Jefferson.
Kim Murphy, Town of Clark. Scott Flyfield from Dalton. Fred Randall from Lancaster.
Dave Holman from Whitefield.
Kristen Bergen from Lancaster.
Thank you. As for the slide projected behind me, you see there are 3 seats on the board. The terms are expiring this year. The 3 open seats There are 3 open seats for any interested parties to file. One is one of the Lancaster seats, the Carroll seat, and the Dalton seat. Interested parties may obtain a declaration of candidacy form from the district office in Whitefield. Persons interested in being placed on the ballot for a board member seat that's available may file beginning on January 22nd and no later than 5 p.m. specifically on January 31st. There's also annually the position of moderator open for interested parties.
All right, so this slide is it's why we are here, and what we're doing, and what drives our priorities in the administration and on the board. So a few years ago, we had a strategic planning committee. It was community driven, and we came up with these pillars that all of our activities in the school district revolve around these 5 pillars. So we have structure and finance, and that's organizing the district so that we're using our resources as efficiently as we can. Culture, we want a culture that includes everyone, it's safe, it's nurturing, supportive of everyone. Communication, we have a task to have more consistent communication across as many channels as possible to get our messages out to where people are. And hopefully you've seen that increased use of social media, a column in the local newspaper. From a technical standpoint, we get our message out very efficiently to our families and students. Educational, we are working to ensure that our curriculum is consistent across our elementary schools, that we give our students an opportunity to, as we say here at the high school, to own their own learning. And there's so many pathways available to our learners, whether it's the CTE that you've heard about in the previous hearing, the STEAM Innovation Academy, ELOs, the college prep. There's so many ways that students can benefit from their time. In leadership, we have a culture of supporting all of our staff members, of fostering leaders from within our team, and promoting them. So all of these planks are what keep us on task. Every board meeting, everything slots into one of these areas. And I would just highlight the first one, the structure and finance, because the most recent community effort, just like the strategic plan, we also have had this blueprint for tomorrow committee that was staffed by community members, interested parties, and members of the district. And that has brought forward recommendations that would help us look at how our structure can be adapted to future needs. So one of the most significant things is the idea of possibly bringing the 7th and 8th graders from all the community to this school. So we talked a lot about that. They'll be in the news a lot. We'll be soliciting opinions and input from everyone. There are other parts of that which follow from that. So having a consistent and equitable experience in no matter which school your elementary students might be in, and that's tied to that. Finally, one of the most important new initiatives or newer initiatives is an increased focus on social emotional learning and wellness. So you saw that earlier in the CTE hearing, but that's a big focus of our efforts as well. And that's consistent across all of our schools.
On slide 4,
Can I interrupt? I think it might be helpful if, I was just gonna say, if I didn't ask myself at the end of my slide, if anybody had any questions or comments on the election or the slide that Mr. Randall just read, and we can ask for questions and comments after each slide. It would probably would go along better.
I think it's like they suggest that you use the microphones.
Was yours? You can't hear me?
You use the microphones, yes.
I thought they were all on,
Is that clear to you?
but talking to it. Is that better?
Yeah.
So we're just gonna suggest if there were any other questions or comments on any slides that you've heard so far, we'll ask at the end of each slide. And from there. So I think we are now on slide 4. Mr. Murphy.
okay, this slide just explains the timeline for the next month of activities. And tonight's hearing is an opportunity for explanation and feedback. The February 3rd deliberative session, the voters will have the opportunity to come and discuss amendments and budget articles. And then after that, we'll be voting at all our towns on March 10th.
Slide 5 is the budget numbers. So if you look at the last row, which is the row in red, what that will do is give you the totals over the past 5 years. You'll see our total budget this year is up 3.2%, and that 3.2 is found all the way to the bottom right-hand corner. With the total being of an increase this year of $642,284. Now, the cost drivers for that increase, there are 3 main cost drivers. The first cost driver is the special education out-of-district tuition, and it's broken down a little later. That number in itself was $286,000 that we had to add in to what we already typically budget for out-of-district placement due to some students who are needing some extra services that we haven't budgeted for in the past. The second cost driver is the health insurance costs that annually will go up. And the third main cost driver to that increase is the year 2 of the teacher's CBA contract. Now, if we broke the cost drivers by school, in Lancaster, the biggest increase, or one of the increases, was the teacher salary increases, of course, that we just mentioned. We are also adding a full-time social emotional learning coach in Lancaster. It's being split between Lancaster and Whitefield schools. So Lancaster's budgeted for half of that salary, and Whitefield will budget for the other half. Of course, health insurance premiums are going up, and we also have had to add or budget a school psychologist. And this in the past has been paid for through IDA funds, through some grants. This year, it cannot be paid for that, so we have to pay for this position. And again, this position is going to be district-wide, but predominantly down at the Lancaster and Whitefield schools, and 10% of the time will be here at the high school. The main cost drivers in Whitefield: teacher salary increases, the social emotional learning coach, the health insurance, and the school psychologist. So the same cost drivers are at both the elementary schools. At the high school, you have some pluses and minuses. The cost drivers that are adding to the budget this year are the teacher salary increases, the health insurance, and also an increase in student transportation. And what we're doing to try to encourage Vermont students to come to us, in particular from Lunenburg and Gilman, we are providing some transportation from those towns to the high school. And that's helping us recruit, which brings tuition money into our school. So it is a cost for us to help provide some transportation. In return, we're getting some of those more students coming to us, which is a plus, because we get the tuition money from it. Some of the things that actually have been reduced in the high school budget, the auditorium AV project has been completed. This was partly budgeted from last year, and so we have completed that project. So that's $100,000 less out of the budget than we had last year. We have a reduction in CTE tuition. There is a reduction of students from White Mountains Regional School District going to the Littleton site. And so with the reduction of students going to the Littleton site to participate in their CTE, that is a savings for us. And of course, we've reduced the athletic fields repairs, and that was through a warrant article, I believe, from last year. Maybe somebody from the high school can better explain if someone needs that explained. But there is a reduction in our high school budget on athletic field repairs. The cost drivers at the SAU office, and this is the big one, is the unexpected special ed tuition and residential costs. And that is $286,000 added on to what we typically budget for out-of-district placement anyway. And again, if that's not absolutely correct, Shelley, you can correct me too, but is that pretty much correct? Okay. So that's the budget in a nutshell, just with plain numbers in front of you. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. You will see on this slide that we go back to the year 2016-17. So you can kind of look in the yellow in the middle. We'll kind of give you some totals for 2016-17, 17-18, 18-19, 19-20, and then of course our proposed budget for this year. Yes.
So the health insurance is, are all.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can I ask you to please stand up and to the microphone, state your name. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dylan Swan, and I'm from Boston. I was wondering if each of the schools have their own healthcare providers, or do all the employees in the districts use the same healthcare program? And do you know what the average cost per person per things? Single is, we mean the total. Okay, what does, yeah, 20 hours? Yes. Single is a little over 10,000 a year. Person and family is not more. No, okay, so are they?
I just wanted to clarify for people watching at home, the question was to ask what the cost of the plan for health insurance for a single, that is $10,000 approximately a year, and for a family plan across the district, $20,000 a year. Any further questions on that slide?
Okay, this next slide that we're going to see is the warrant articles recommended by the school board. And the first one, of course, is the bond renovation and the CTE design. We have to appropriate the full amount, even though we do, the state will pay approximately $6,087 for that, I believe. And we have to appropriate the amount, the other amount, even though it will not be our responsibility until year 22. So we have, by state law, we have to appropriate it now. Okay, and if the vote is against this, then it won't happen. All right. The budget raised by taxes, the proposed budget of, try to get my seat here. $21,870 and $8,070 and $322. And this is the second year of the approved contract. So it's part of that, which is $261,272. That was approved by voters last year for the teacher's contract. the default budget would be, 21,500, 21 million, I'm sorry. It's,
A little different.
it's, having a hard time seeing it. Okay. 21,572,022, and this includes the second year of the teachers, and, that was approved last year. Okay. The support staff contract raised by taxes was just negotiated with the board, and that would be this year, the increase would be 100,176. Okay. And the second half of that contract would be, I believe, around, that's in the latest slide, I believe you'll see it, but I believe it's around 59,000. I'd have to look at that too. And then the next articles are the capital reserve funds that the board, if we get approval by the voters, we take out of the surplus at the end of the school year. Now, these are funded in the order that they are now. The board decides the order that they will be funded. So if there's money left at the end of the year, the first one of these that would be funded would be the out-of-district placement. And that is because of the big increase we've had in out-of-district placements. And the board does not want to be caught without the money to be able to fund it. So we have a capital reserve fund to be able to do this. All right, and then the next one that we placed was for the truck, because our trucks are costing us a lot of money to keep up, and we need to replace one as soon as we can. And so we're putting money away for that. The third one is the building and grounds maintenance expense fund, and that is what we basically use to do repairs. And this auditorium, that's where the money came from. Otherwise than that, we cannot do repairs. And if the money is available at that time, we do put 300,000 away. And then after that is the district-wide road maintenance and paving fund. And then the life safety code deficiencies. And the athletic fields. And this is the total that would be asked of the voters, would be $35,375,037. Okay. And then the revenues that are generated, the Building and Grounds Maintenance Trust Fund has $856,130. And what we're asking is that at this year, at this time, this money is a lump sum that will come from the state as a part of the adequacy grant. And we're asking that the voters give us this to be able to put into the Building and Grounds Maintenance Trust Fund. And the importance of this is that just in the Lancaster School, in the Whitefield School, in the next 5 years, we have, I believe Lancaster is about $800,000, and Whitefield, if I'm not mistaken, is $850,000 in roof repairs that are going to have to be done. And if we have the money available, then we can do this. So that's what that would be. The other ones are the Arthur T. Paradis Career and Technical Education. This is the tuition surcharge the sending districts pay. Okay, and then the capital reserve fund for the forestry. If we do any timber harvest, which there are no plans to do, that money would be put into that fund. Okay, and then there are no petition articles this year, so the total amount would be the $36,281,167. And then raised by taxes, and that would be the sale of bond, would be the $6,087,746. And the state portion of the grant fund would be $6,856,793 for the total project of $12,960,000. $944,539. Okay, any questions on this slide? I know I went through it kind of quickly, but, all right, so next slide.
Did you have a question?
Arlene, you have a question?
What was the question?
You know, when we're looking at this, you're asking us for $13 million project. I know it's 600 million, we're supposed to, 6 million, we're supposed to pay. Looking at the increase of 400,000 in the budget, looking at raises of $22,000, and then this 56,000 is going into the building and grounds, and then one additional 300,000 for there. That's a hefty load for the taxpayers to pay, to handle. Where do we get anything? I mean, couldn't we at least from that one-time pay get maybe 200,000 or some promise or something back to people? This is a big load for 1 year. I can't believe we couldn't have done something about it. I mean, I'll have raise every year, and I guess I don't even think I would raises for the administration in here. What percent of leadership? How much? 2%? Maybe you guys should hold off for the school funding. Give some kind of promise to us on this. This is a heavy, heavy load.
Arlene, I think that Kristen is going to speak to the one-time advocacy aid on her slide and explain if you vote yes, if you vote no, and how that
If
plays
we
out.
don't know, so it's gonna be up to us to get it back ourselves. I mean, I can't believe it in that budget. Did you send the budget back to, for a second look to these people saying, to everybody saying, look, we've got a heavy load here. Do you think we could cut some things that aren't necessary? Or even the third law? Did you do that?
Yes, we did. We worked hard with the board this year.
And how much did they cut out?
I don't have that number on top of my head.
And, you know, when you ask for these increases, there has to be some cost benefits too. I mean, what are we gonna get for these raises we keep giving out? I mean, how much did we spend last year for people to come in and substitutes? How much did we pay last year? Maybe for this amount, the teachers can stay in the And how about lawyer fees and all that? Seems like we've had enough trouble with them. Look for some things. Stay home, don't go on these excavations, not excavations, but all these consultants that we're paying a hefty sum from. Let's not take it out of it, because I really want to know some things that are in this budget that guarantee those first 3 grades in school get what they need, because we seem to be raising stuff, but we don't seem to be doing it. I mean, we're fixing buildings and stuff, but we're doing education, and so far, that drill down thing that they went on last year, that was guaranteed was funding, but people got turned down for reading and for this help in the first 3 grades. I just want to see that isn't true. I mean, tell me there's something here for consideration of the taxpayers. Do you have to have all of this year? Where's the sacrifices? Because we're gonna have to. I don't see any new businesses coming. I don't see any. $138 per 150,000 buildings in Lancaster. That brings it up to, in Whitefield, good Lord, they're extreme. You put on projects, I mean, we depend on you people to take a hard look at it. When you see this big numbers, I expect some kind of concessions here or something, so you'll get what you want. We don't want you to go without it, good Lord.
Arlene, I think it's fair, to speak to that a little bit. There are further slides in here that will explain that one-time funding grant, and what effects that would have if it was just to go back to the taxpayers or not. All our building administrators and the administration have worked diligently to maintain what we provide for our students in education. It's fair to say on average right now with the funding in education and the way things have gone over the years, there's a little bit of an uptick on what the state has been providing for our students to get this education and the best possible education and the constitutionally adequate education in the state. Let me finish. Our average student receives about $4,500 a year. It costs us, with what we currently have for programming and educational needs, unanticipated or not, $21,000 per student. That money has to come from somewhere. This board and this administration has been working diligently over the years. We have kept somewhat of a level budget for the last 10 years. For the amount of cost of education, what we receive in funding, and the programs that we provide and the resources that we need to maintain, it's a good budget.
Well, less than have to go, 6,400,000, 22,000, it's all increases, and I don't see anything. If you have surplus this year, it's coming back to the taxpayers from last year. How much? And everything is like, that was all. So there isn't any surplus come back to the taxpayers.
Any further questions on that slide? Or any other input? Thank you.
And the next slide is the election of officers. And that's already been one of the winners, been from Carroll, Paul, and Lancaster. And then we have a raised by the taxes of the people, the 12 million for the renovations, and the proposed budget, $21,870,000. $870,322. The default budget B is there, which we already said would be $21,572,022, and then the support staff contract cost. Okay, any questions on that slide? It's basically a repeat of the first one. Okay, the next slide is the capital reserve funds, and you can see we have the balance that is in those reserve funds now. Okay, which the first one is that the out-of-district placements right now we have 116,942,000.
116,000.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We'd be left.
116,000. Yeah, I wish it was 116 million. Okay. And the truck fund is $22,584. And then the building and grounds, at this time we have $695,414.51. And the road maintenance is at $45,801. The capital reserve fund for life safety goals is at $75,416.29. And the athletic fields is at $71,131.32. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
So warrant article number 11 addresses how the districts will handle at one time release funds from the state for adequacy aid. This is a combination of two different funding streams that are calculated at the state level. One portion of this money is awarded to municipalities that have more than 12% of the students living in their municipality who qualify for free and reduced lunch. And the other pot of money was feeding into this $856,130 one-time adequacy aid.
is calculated on a sliding scale. The state provides up to $1,750 per student for every student living in a municipality where the equalized property valuation is less than $1 million per student. And so, because we have 5 towns in our district, you'll see that the totals really vary by town. And those are the 2 primary factors that are running in here. First, is this a town that has at least 12% of the students living within that municipality qualifying for free and reduced lunch? So towns that have a higher percentage of students who qualify for free and reduced receive more of that $350 per student aid. And towns that have property valuations of less than $1 million per student living in town will be towns that can also receive that one-time disparity aid that's coming in from the state. So a lot of calculation behind the scenes, but the end result is that for SAU 36, the state will be releasing $856,130 to the district in a one-time disbursement of aid to address that disparity that just mentioned, where right now we receive on average about $4,500 per student in state FSA, and it costs our district close to $21,000 per student to actually deliver the quality education that our district is delivering. So to help compensate for that large gap, the state's releasing this one-time aid. We have 2 options for what we can do with the state. The board is recommending that the district be allowed to retain these monies and deposit them directly into the building and grounds maintenance expendable trust fund. This is a fund that on an annual basis is funded only through surplus monies. So we do not add money to this fund through taxation. If there is surplus at the end of the year, according to those based on surplus articles that Jim just spoke about, money trickles from one bucket to the next until those contribution amounts are met. Right now, the buildings and grounds maintenance expendable trust has $695,414.51. So allowing us to add this bucket of one-time aid will more than double that fund. For us, that's really important because we know that we have upcoming large projects that need to happen in our school buildings in order for them to remain safe and sanitary and secure, including large roof replacements that are coming due, boiler systems that are aging out and needing to be replaced. If we're able to place this one-time adequacy pot into that trust, it will prevent us having to come to the voters in later years asking to raise the money for those projects through taxation. So if you vote yes on warrant article 11, you authorize the district to immediately move those monies into the buildings maintenance fund. If you vote no, which is also an option, that money passes through the district out to municipalities. And so that means, according to those one-time totals from town, Carroll will receive $0, Dalton will receive $92,706, Jefferson will receive $13,092, Lancaster will receive $471,940, and Whitefield will receive $278,392. Passes through to the municipality as a form of tax relief to the voters, one time. The following year, that relief will no longer exist, and the municipal taxes will be adjusted accordingly. So there's a spike in terms of your tax relief, and then an immediate drop where those taxes will have to be increased again in municipalities. We, frankly, folks, we see this as a short game, long game kind of choice before you. You could have a short-term tax relief next year, or you can help us by making sure we have the necessary monies to maintain our buildings so our students can receive education in these buildings. Any questions about this one-time aid, how it's provided to us and what we want to do?
Okay, Articles 12 and 13. These differ from the items that are funded by the surplus tax money. And I'll give you an example with the forest component. And Jim has already said that we don't plan to do any harvest. But if we had some windfall and with some valuable timber that was laying on the ground, we could possibly harvest that. and those funds would then be, directed, into this reserve. So it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. This just gives us a place when we have some of these unanticipated, funds, where we put them, and then they are distributed accordingly after that. Any questions on that slide? And then the next slide, we're basically summarizing the fiscal year 21 budget, and I'll just go over a few of these things. I think the distinction here from what we've already heard is these are fixed costs. These are things that we really don't have a lot of choice about. Our healthcare is $182,668. These are increases. These are part of that 3.2% that we were talking about earlier. Time is $31,988. Workers' compensation is increasing by $3,050. The teacher salaries are going up by $261,271. That's part of the second year contract. The same thing with busing contracts is increasing by $38,221. Electricity is going up by $1,000, and then our various kinds of fuel, we're seeing an increase of $7,750. And then again, the other driver is the other district tuition and placement. We also have some staff changes. I think the easiest way to understand the staffing changes, we're going to have 5 retirements this year, and we only plan to replace 4 of those individuals, so there will be a reduction of one person among the staff. And some of those changes also, there will be some reassignment of some of the roles. And that's kind of a summary of the budget increases. Does anybody have any questions concerning that?
Thank you, David. The next couple of slides are pie charts, and they're pretty lengthy, but the first slide, the distribution of the proposed budget is by program. I'm going to read around that one and give you some examples of what each of those pie pieces contain. And if you have any questions on the by type of expenses, I'm not necessarily going to go through each one of those individually, but we'll get started with the first slide by program. The regular programs is 34% of the budget. Regular programs is, of course, regular education instruction, and technology is included in that as well, and that's $7,399,335. Special programs is $3,087,030 and is 14% of the budget. Special programs are special ed instruction and out-of-district tuition costs. Our CTE programs, $492,994 is 2% of the budget, which is the high school CTE instructional programs. Other programs, $561,988 is 3% of the budget. Other programs include athletics, co-curricular, our futures program. Student support, $1,711,113 is 8% of our budget. Student support services includes speech, occupational therapy, counseling, student assistant programs, nursing, psychologists. Instructional staff services, $501,881 is 2% of this budget. That's your professional development, library, media centers, high school teacher leader. School board, $125,808 is 1% of this budget. School board services. Other administrative services is $1,102,499, and that's 5% of this budget. Other administrative services include superintendent's office costs, teacher, building leadership teams, career and tech ed, special ed, curriculum, and athletic directors. School administration services, $1,337,987 is 6% of this budget. That includes building administrative staff and costs. Business, $300,269 is 1% of this budget. That's the business and finance staff and associated costs. Operation and maintenance of the plant, $2,442,521, and that's 11% of this budget. That includes facilities, maintenance staff, and district facility costs. Student transportation, $1,213,716 is 5% of this budget. All district transportation costs. Transfers, $1,541,981 is 7% of this budget. And that is food services, grants, capital reserve, and expendable trust funds, charter school tuitions, support service, central and others, $51,195, which is less than 1%. This is 0% here of this budget. It's a little bit more than 0%. And that includes communications coordinator, teacher mentors, West Country Education Service membership fees and things of that nature. Facilities acquisition and construction, it's $5. What is that? What are we getting for that $5? I'm not really sure, but I guess that's architects, engineers, something.
You can put a dollar in every account, because if you don't have at least a dollar, then you can't spend the money on that.
So if you don't have a dollar in that account continually, you can't spend money for that, those services. I never knew that. Is that new? First I heard that one. On the next slide, it is a breakdown of all these services, but by the type of expense. And as you can see, salary and benefits are the majority of the budget. $15,588,075 is 71% of this budget. Professional services, $266,822 is 1%. Repairs and maintenance, $379,543 is at 2%. Leases and rentals, $418,695 at 2%. Student transportation, $1,144,436 at 5%. Tuition, $987,845, that's 4%. Travel and staff development, $121,996 at 1% of this budget. Supplies, $830,121 at 4% of this budget. Equipment, $146,502 at 1%. Fund transfers, $1,496,481 at 7%. Miscellaneous, $489,806 at 2%. Do we have any questions on the breakdown by type or program? No? Thank you.
The next slide is a slide of our budget history from 2006 to 2021. And as you can see on the top graph, that's our school budgets over the last 10 years, 15 years. And as you can see, in 2010, 2011, there was a concerted effort to reduce budget. It has slowly climbed over the past 10 years, as you can see on that graph. Now, the bottom graph is what the state has been giving us for state adequacy. And if there's some questions about this, I'm going to defer this over to Sheila, only because I don't understand all of this. So if you have a question, you can ask me, and we'll see the best we can do to answer it. But as you can see with the bottom graph, it was steady from 2010 to 2016. Wasn't going up, wasn't going down. It was pretty much a straight horizontal line. Of course, our costs have been going up every year. And so when the state just flatlines you and costs go up, the taxpayer pays that extra cost. Now, that is until this year. Now, this year, in the budget, we were given it's a one-time payment, but it's actually covering part of this year and going into next year. And you can see that increase at the very bottom there, those last 2 years, from 19 to 20 to 21. And that was the one-time payment that the governor put in the 2-year budget. Are there any questions? If you have some, please ask. Thank you.
So this, the revenue comparison is really a repackaging or a different visualization of the same information. If we look on the left, our proposed budget, you can see that the local percentage is 52% compared to 6 years ago when it was 50%. And when you look at the other slices of the pie there, the state portion has been relatively stable, except for this year, as we're talking about. And then the federal, these are grants, food service reimbursements, that has obviously decreased a little bit, so that explains the difference. But again, as Scott was saying in the previous slide, when the state and federal monies are not going up or they're flatlined, it's left to us locally to pick up the slack.
Any questions on that, Sam? It's me, the next slide, sports staff bargaining unit. So, as you can see here, this is the salaries and benefits. I'm happy to say negotiations went smoothly as we moved from a step salary schedule into a more skills-based hourly rate schedule for all of our supportive departments and staff. On January 6th, both the Educational Association and the board ratified an agreement for a 2-year contract, and that's what you see here. That was agreed upon as long as it's approved by the voters. It's a 2-year contract in fiscal year 21. That means a salaries of $100,176, and fiscal year 22, year 2 of the contract would be $58,923. And that does have an estimated tax impact if the voters choose to pass that contract. The impact for Carroll will be 5 cents per thousand, Dalton 12 cents per thousand, Jefferson 10 cents per thousand, Lancaster 13 cents per thousand, and Whitefield 11 cents per thousand. Any questions on the support staff contract?
This slide really shows us the district assessment and how that then plays into the tax impact for our proposed budget, less the estimated revenues. So I just wanted to make sure I'm seeing what if we consider all warrants, the current fiscal year 20 budget is $21,459,502, and our proposed budget for fiscal year 21 is $21,370,322, with a dollar difference of $410,820, so about 1.9% increase. When we add in the warrants, the total amount of warrants brings that to $23,336,628, which is a because of $1,877,126. Or because of 8.75%. There is a estimated revenues in mix, and so currently our revenues for this year are $1,748,012. That is a little bit higher than the proposed budget. It's $10,095,129 for about a 3.67% difference at $387,617. And when we figure in the warrants, there's a slight increase in estimated revenues there, so it's $10,605,929. And the difference of $367,617 to 8.9%. And so the total assessment for this year's capital budget is $774,300. This does not include the bond for the CTE project. This is how much is actually due in taxation, and it's a total of what all towns will collect in taxes. So if all of our articles pass, we do see an increase there because it's 1%. And the next slide, we can sort of show you that, the value as an estimator, if you own a property that's assessed at $100,000. In Carroll, that rate change will be an increase of 58 cents per thousand, so it will be a $58 impact for the next tax year. In Welding, that rate change is 36 cents per thousand, so Welding taxpayers who own a property value of $100,000 will see an increase of $36 in the tax bill. Jefferson's rate change is $1.30, so that would be a $130 difference on a $100,000 value property. And my investor is 9 cents per thousand. Right at $1.59 per thousand. Questions?
Okay, so this shows us our surplus history. I think the best way to explain this is, if you look back at a number of years ago, there was some surplus, that was returned to the taxpayer. What this really means is that if you look in 2017 and then again in 2018, that some of those other articles in the end have not actually been funded because there was not a surplus, because according to those other articles, they would be funded first. So this just basically kind of gives us an overview of the last 5 years of how that surplus has been distributed. Does anyone have any questions on that?
Okay. In the closing arguments, they asked me to go first, and I think that's because they were afraid I'd fall asleep at my age before we got here.
No arguments.
I want to take this time to thank the taxpayers. You've been very good to us over the years, and I know you've had to make some difficult decisions. I also want to thank our staff, because I know that the staff, they could leave here, go south, and make a lot more money. All right, and they're doing an excellent job. Our kids are getting an excellent education. Okay, and at my age, I look back and I say, what can I leave? The only thing I can leave is to work for our students, to be able to go out in this world and earn a decent living. All right, and I want to thank you people for doing this, because, I mean, I don't have any kids in the system. I haven't had them for, 20 years. All right, but we have kids, we have excellent kids, we have an excellent school, and thank you.
Any other board members want to?
I'd like to say something. I honestly, I have traveled a fair amount. Many of you don't know me. And I honestly, I'm excited about issue 836. I think that we have a wonderful administration and absolutely superb faculty. And for me to sit on this board is an honor. And you folks have put that trust in me, and I just have the highest regard for it. And thank you very much.
Kristen?
I would just echo that we're really quite blessed in sisters to have very high quality caliber educators and administrators who are thinking very differently and innovatively about how to deliver a high quality education in a rural setting to students who face some of the largest challenges in our state. Our district covers towns and region is known for having an incredibly high level of poverty, a high level of poor education in prior generations. Kids who are really up against it when we think about how we're going to send out into the world to be successful, contributing members of our society. And the teachers and administrators in our district are working really hard to be sure that we're really shining star in the education system in New Hampshire. They are regularly asked to present at state, regional, and national and international conferences about the work that they're doing here, producing a very high-class education and a relatively small budget. And I know we had some questions about, what was given back in the budget review process. I will tell you that our early leadership teams and our student leadership team have worked tirelessly for months to think very carefully about what they really need, and if they really want to ask the taxpayers to fund. They have absolutely set things down. They have absolutely put off expansions and programs for a couple of years to make sure that they have solid foundations in place to grow upon. We really encourage the taxpayers, if you have questions about what's happening in your district, to reach out to your building teams, to reach out to your district team. I've never heard education enthusiasts to talk about the work that they're doing. And attend our events. We have amazing things happening in the community that are open to the public. Last night was a great local concert that celebrated the musical talents of kids across all three schools. We have an amazing culinary team that's out there in the community showing their skills and preparing children for careers. That's only possible because we support what we're doing through the tax process, and we really do appreciate that. But please engage with us because there are lots of people that
I don't want to call on that. Anyone else?
In conclusion, complex, multifaceted process, continued need to be creative, seeking funding sources, throughout strategic planning, thoughtful strategic planning, evidence, research-based decision-making strategies, maximizing the efficiency of every dollar. I just wanted to add as well, and on behalf of the board, as you heard Kristen say, we are very appreciative of the work that is put in the education that's delivered here at White Mountains. One of the things that we've obviously seen in the adequacy aid and in the funding from the state over the years and the decline in that, this past year, there's been a little bit of a nudge up from downstate in the governor's office, and that's what this one-time adequacy aid is, and it's for further legislation to improve the funding from the state so that these students get a constitutionally adequate education. And we like to go above and beyond the minimum standards here at White Mountains, and I think we do an excellent job. I moved here 20 years ago for this school district. And I got great kids that have graduated from it, and one left in the high school here as a freshman. And my kids brag about this district. They have moved out of the district. I'd like them to stay, and I'd like all our graduates to stay in the area. And one of the things that shows that we are a great educational community is that a lot of our staff graduated from this school in this district, and they came back, and we appreciate that as well. So one of the things that the board has agreed to do, which you may or may not have heard, is join some legislative efforts with Conval, Brief, and joined and signed up with the amicus brief with them to stand up and hopefully speak to these legislators and get some more funding for our education, so it's not a burden on our local taxpayers to deliver the great education that we do. So I think that about sums it up. Next session is our deliberative session again on February 3rd, Monday night at 6:30 PM here. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Good night.